guys, thank you for clicking on the video. Welcome to Strolling Wise Minds. I'm Kanishk, and today I have Mr. Shubham Gadkal. So he's working as a product manager at Microsoft, and he'll be taking us through the journey of what a product manager is, and it's basically a new word for us. It's not a new buzzword for us, and it's not a career option we generally see people pursuing. It's relatively a new career option as well. So we'll ask him, and he'll guide us through that journey. So welcome, Mr. Shubham. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me, Kanish. I'll try to answer as many questions as I can.
Sure, sir. So first of all, for our audience, like you could just elaborate like what is a product manager and what is product management all about, like how it functions, how is it different from a developer? So yeah.
Right. So it's pretty much different, quite different from developer. In an aspect that a developer gets a task and then he or she starts working on it. But for a product manager, it's about two things: finding the opportunities for a product and finding how you can implement it. So first you have to find the right idea or find the right product and build it. Then you have to try and how to make it right, and you then give it to developer. So to give an example, let's say I'm working on Spotify. So Spotify has found out that users are now not so much interested into playlist. So now they see that, hey, this radio thing is very in trends now. So they'll try to a Spotify PM will try to work with or take interviews of multiple customers, and then he'll try to understand. He or she'll try to understand that what in radio entices you. Will Spotify hosting a radio work for you or not? And then by assessing such opportunities, the PM will understand what is that what is it that customer wants, and what is that we should build. And then whatever specifications that a product manager decides, the PM will pass on to the dev manager or the project manager, and the project manager will work with devs, and the PM will tell them that we have to build an ML based or just maybe just a radio streaming service, and then the developers will decide how to build it using X framework or Y frameworks, and then they'll go on developing those. So the first one is a lot of business oriented. The second one is development or technology oriented.
Sure, sir. By like everything you told, it's like it's an overall glimpse of everything. It covers almost all the aspects and the business requirements of the product, etc. So I'll since maybe our audience doesn't know. So you are a computer science graduate, right? So you started your career being a software developer at with Barclays probably, and so how what was your take us through that journey? How come you prepared for developer roles, right, and you started for doing this? And when was the point when you started, okay, this is not working out for me, or maybe I'm not that much interested in it, so I would like to pursue a different track or maybe a different niche altogether? So when this when this thing happened basically?
Right. So just to give a background, I myself I'm an IT engineer. I've done my engineering from College of India in Pune. And then I started my first job with Barclays. So I was a software developer in Barclays Investment Bank. There, fortunately, due to my manager, I was not only into regular coding. So there is two parts to every development task that you get or job that you get. One, either you can do the regular day-to-day coding where you get a product, you find some opportunities, you develop the features. And the other part is you work on infrastructure, DevOps, setting up or building a totally new product and those things. So I was doing 50-50. I was also building feature, and side by side I was working on developing the cloud infrastructure. And so there I got to know an overview of how a product works, not just how I build a feature, but how a product works. And there I got to understand that there's something bigger than just writing a code and developing a feature. Writing a code to build a specific feature. So then, and for some other reasons, I was interested into going into MBA. More or less, I wanted to understand the business side of it. But then I like tech and I like business, and then the mixture of two is actually product management. So I was always inclined to PM.
So what I feel like from everything you told me, like you started preparing for the MBA things, maybe for CAT probably after you got into a job. So you never thought of it in
Yeah.
college, or probably you never had a thought that I'll have to go for an MS probably, or maybe people tend to go for GATE and go for PSUs, or like there are different options. So how come you like zeroed down on this thing? I just I this thing which appeals me. Like okay, definitely like what's the definite path when people get interested in tech is like going for this MIM course, like Masters in Management, Information and Management. It's a course, so it's like both inclined towards information and management. So when do you zero down? I want to do in an Indian context from an Indian B school, and I just how was the thought process of that sort? Yeah.
Right. So after graduation, you have multiple options. One is do the job. Second is MS outside GATE, and third is GATE and do an MTech in the country, or you can do an MBA inside or outside the country. I was confused between MBA and job. I did not want to go to either MTech or MS. Reason being, I was okay with the kind of tech knowledge I had, and anyways, I did not want to pursue it immediately, even if it was interested to me. So I did not even pursue MBA that much, which I even suggest other people that it's better to get some exposure into the real job, any job you are doing, which gives you a better understanding into MBA if you are going to do that. So I actually went into job. First year I didn't give CAT. I just gave a CAT in the fourth year, but I didn't give CAT later, and I gave it in the second year. After which I pursued MBA. The reason I did not go for an MIM outside India was purely financial reasons because it's quite costly. But had that not been the reason, then I might have pursued.
Okay. Sure. But sir, like you said, you give took CAT in final year as well. So, like CAT preparation is in itself is quite a rigorous thing. It's a whole rigorous activity altogether. You prepare for like different things in quant and DILR, and there's a notion which people think like okay, CAT is an aptitude exam. Like, what do you think? What's your take on CAT? Like taking or preparing for CAT, or maybe generally what we computer science engineers do is we prepare for DSA, we are doing development jobs, we're doing machine learning on the side, and CAT is a whole different activity. Like preparing for GATE is a completely different activity. Like you're studying your core subjects, but CAT is in a way going out of line. So how do you handle
Right.
that? Like, yeah, it's an exam of management. That's an obvious answer, but what's the real thing with it?
If you see CAT, you would not find management a lot. You would actually find aptitude, quantitative aptitude, logical reasoning, and English. So, but the thing is, it all actually helps later in management. So, yes, it's quite different from GATE, but you will also find those kind of exams in your placements. If let's say when you campus placement, half of the part is actually technical. If you have an aptitude exam, half of the part is actually technical. Maybe you have to write code or something, and you also have to give some aptitude test. It's more or less like that. As for the actual aptitude, what people have impression about aptitude is it's the numbers aptitude. It's one part. There's a quantitative aptitude, one third. Then there's logical reasoning, which includes data interpretation. You have to
Data
create
sets.
pie
Yeah.
charts, graphs. Yeah. And the third part is actually English. So it's all of those, not just aptitude. But if you're good at it, you can do it. In fourth year, I just gave it just to see how the exam is. But if you're actually interested, you have to manage it with your placements. Yes, it's hectic, but I think anyways during fourth year you have some time. Depends on college to college, but I think you have some time to do it with placement, so you can give it.
I just yes, that's the thing. I guess I didn't articulate my question in a very well manner. My question was ki, when you prepare for an exam, it's not just the exam, it's not just the syllabus, it's a mental pressure you have to look up to. You have to take a lot of mocks, and it's a whole I guess like what's the timeline of CAT, preparing for CAT and actually taking it? According to you, what's that timeline? And apart from that,
Right.
there's a lot of other activities going on in college, and you for example in your job as well, there's a lot of activity happening, and a whole mental turmoil is already there. So how do you actually take out time, and what's the timeline, and how should you look for preparing for this exam in particular? So that's
Okay.
the thing.
Okay. So I'll tell everyone who is interested in CAT for one thing. Try to understand where you stand before you before you plan that I want to give CAT or you're very serious about CAT. Just try to understand where you lie on the graph. That maybe you can just see how what kind of questions are there in quant, English, and DILR. If you see everything is difficult, you should try to give 5 months, at least 5 to 6 months. Should try preparing for individual subjects first, and then go on for subject mocks and then full mocks, so on and so forth. So maybe 2 months for unlearning what the subjects are, then beginning practice. It's a lot about practice. That's why I'm saying 3 to 4 months for practice and just 1 or 2 months to actually learn the concepts. On the like when you compare GATE and CAT, GATE or MS and CAT, the biggest difference is CAT does not have a lot of concepts. English does not have a lot of concept. DILR, there's not a concept per se. Quant has some. It's more of maths, and it will be difficult to CS. If you're an engineer, it will be easy for you because you're already working with DIL, derivatives and integration and all. So it helps engineers. It's difficult for CS, but the learning for each subject is less. For everyone, practice matters a lot. So I'll say, whatever timeline you choose, if you're if you're bad at that, it's difficult for you, give 6 months. If you're good at it, give 4 months, and then spend 2/3 time to practice and 1/3 time to learning the subject. And during practice, you can obviously learn the topics that are difficult for you.
So another notion which prevails in engineering college basically is people have came, there are a lot of hard work in 11th, 12th, and generally people not that good orators allegedly, and later in their life they tend to be so. So there's a prevalent notion that MBA is for people who have this dynamic and dashing personality and who can crack all the interviews and very either preparing for UPSC on the side and having a lot of current affairs in their mind, etc. So what is this exam like? What do B schools exactly demand from people? And what kind of profiles should what kind of people should actually plan on pursuing their management degree? And that's the question basically.
I don't think it's like it should not be that, hey, I know this is my profile and will this profile suit MBA. It's about you. Do you want to do an MBA? Understand what MBA entails, that you have to be managing something, a project or an operation or a product or a sales team or something, or a human resource team. See if you can do either of those, and then maybe if you want, you can go for an MBA. It does not actually depend on what your profile is, right? Even in top colleges, there are people who have flunked their 11th or 12th, or even during engineering, there are people with very low pointers in engineering and all sorts of small or big failures during their life prior to coming to an MBA. This is academics. Apart from them, there are lawyers who do MBA. There are medical professionals who do MBA. So there are a lot of people who do MBA. I really don't think it should depend on the profile that you have. As for characteristic, it's not for extrovert. It's nothing that it's for extrovert and not for introvert or something. There are, a lot of jobs which are also, just in case you think that, I am not going to be an orator for my whole life. There are tons of jobs which are just back office jobs, which are great in pay, in learning and everything. But those are back office jobs. So you just have to deal with few more people and you don't actually have to be an orator. I wouldn't say it's the MBA is all about oration or just going out there being an extrovert. That's a very different part of it. Some front office jobs, maybe investment banking, maybe marketing, maybe sales, those have a lot of people. There you have to talk with a lot of people. Even in PM, you have to talk with a lot of people. But even in PM, there are introverts, extroverts, shy people, open people. So it depends on how you manage that.
Okay, sir. So
I hope I answered the question.
Yes, sir. So, and another thing, you talked about exposure before this. Key like roles like product management. You understood how a product is built, and you kind of went to the side when you started to understand what's the business impact of it and know how it affects the direct client, etc. So you need some amount of exposure. Yeah. But generally, what happening is I see my juniors or maybe people from my batch as well. Sometimes they treat MTech or maybe MS or maybe any master's degree course as some kind of redemption. It's like a shorted redemption. So they need, they treat such school like placement agencies. I just need to get in and I need to get that tag. So how important do you think going for masters of any sort, like going for MS or maybe going for MTech or maybe going for MBA, how important is that initial exposure? Because I heard Kenneth Sarau basically inside IIM. So he talked about if he had changed one thing about his MBA, he said, I'll go back and get some experience. So how comes that mentality functions? So that's.
So first answering your second part, right? You should have experience. That's for MBA. I'll come to MTech and later. So if you're doing an MBA, I personally suggest a lot of people that you get an experience and then come to an MBA. that is the reason, if you see average age of experience, average years of experience in US and other foreign countries, it's more towards 3 years, 4 years. But in Indian colleges, it's 1 year, 2 years, around that. So people there prefer actually working professionals getting into an MBA. Very few freshers actually come into an MBA and directly get job placement. The reason is you understand everything in MBA better, and then there are jobs that actually prefer some expertise that you had or some bootstrapping that you already had during your jobs, right? So that is the reason people colleges and companies prefer people with experience. Now, masters as a redemption, yes, a lot of people do that. At maybe at some section of my mind, even I was thinking that. But you don't have to do it just as redemption. You can do, I mean, see, people just think that, it's just about breaking CAT and getting into an MBA, and yeah, I got, or maybe just breaking an MS and I got into Microsoft or Google, or it's not like that. You have to spend 2 years into MS or MTech or CAT, and you have to, or MBA, and you have to score there. So either you will be in India or somewhere, and you'll be giving all the exams for 2 years while spending lakhs, and all these fees are actually, I mean, undergraduate fees are nothing as compared to master's fees. Take any masters, so you'll be spending lakhs into those, and then you'll be getting a job. Instead, if you don't want to do that, and if you think you're good at working hard, you can take your jobs in a sequential way. Try to learn a lot of, maybe get some certifications. I'm telling about coding, which was my background. So it might not apply to other operations or other background after engineering. So in coding, you can do that. So you can take certification, you can learn a lot. You can try for, maybe, let's take for example ML jobs. You get into some startup, because startups hire actually with some startups may hire with certification and job. Then you can shift and then shift. So maybe not in 4 years, let's say 2 years of 2 years of MBA, you won't get into that, but maybe in 6 years you can get that. But see what works for you. Do you really want to spend 2 years studying there? If not, you can take this path as well. But that's what I mean. Don't take it as redemption. See if it suits you. And choosing between MBA and MTech, it's as clear as, do you want tech side or do you want business side? It should not be considered as, because you have to spend 2 years learning those things. And on an average, I'll say it's a bit tougher than any undergraduate. You have, like, it's all crunched, and it's you have to study a bit faster.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. So this is all about getting to MBA and why should you not get into MBA. So we were coming back to the product management discussion. So do you actually, when you started working as a product manager and you worked as a developer in Backblaze, so both the experiences, do you think that this product management, what is your take on product management as of now? How do you think is that as a profile, and would you recommend this to people? Like that's the thing. A lot of like developers keep on cribbing, I don't have work-life balance, etc. So and a lot of people like, I enjoy development. So is it like only your interest matters at this point of time, or maybe you're just getting into a job and it's like manageable? And that's the question.
First, work-life balance does not change from product management to development. It changes from company to company. In a startup, a PM is as busy as a developer. Maybe in an MNC, they both, I mean, developer and PM will be less busy or will have more time on their hands. So it depends on company, not on jobs. Now, developers, I'll suggest PM to those people who like what a PM does, and I'll try to break what PM is, and then maybe the people can understand, is that what suits to you. So first it starts with understanding what data we have. So I'll take an example. Let's say I'm building we'll take the same example, building I'll give us a different social media for kids. Okay, we are building a new social media platform for kids. That there's no such thing right now. So I'll try to, because there's no such thing, I don't have an existing data or research reports for that. So, but if I had, I would have gone and, or maybe I can have somewhere somebody has done a research. I'll try to analyze that. So it's a data analysis, a lot of data analysis on, that's called secondary research, that you do research on whatever existing data that you have. That's a lot of data analysis. So you should be good with working with numbers. The next part is talking to customers. Then I'll go with kids, parents. I'll talk to them. Do you want it? If you want it, how do you want it? I'm pretty sure my assumption is that you would want privacy and security. Is that right? How would you
Sure,
want
sure.
it? So it's a lot of thing with customer communication. Are you good with customer communication?
Okay.
So you should understand. You should try that. Then it's about once you get all the requirements. This is what children and parents want. Now you have to work with. You have to first be creative and build the feature that this is how it will work, and it solves all the user customer problems. And then work with developers again. So again, you have to communicate to developers, to designers, to business. You have to communicate to developer, hey, this is how system is going to be, please develop this. From designers, you take the designs, how it will look, and to business, you communicate why we are doing this and why is this financially feasible or anything. So again, there's a lot of stakeholder management. Are you good at that, or do you want to do that? So take that in consideration. And then it's about running everyday development. That is it going to complete time to time? So you have to work again with developers, and then you release it. Then it's also about risk. Sometimes you have to manage risk as well. I mean, are you good with taking risk? Because sometimes you might be releasing something that does not exist anywhere. So you also have to do some risk management. So you have to work on. And if you're good with all this, then you should come into product management. That's what I'll say. Customer empathy, data analysis, communication, which is quite important. I'll try to repeat it again, and stakeholder management. So all this thing, if you like this thing, you should come into it. And how is it different from developers? Developers get what work they want to do, and they try to do it in the best way, the most efficient way, saving space, saving time. But as a PM, you don't have anything. You don't have a thing written that this is the way to do it. It can be anything. Social media for kids can be built in any way, infinite possibilities. It's up to you that you have to figure. It's everything gray. So you have to make something
it's a blank canvas every time. Every day is a blank canvas. Okay.
So not right.
Yeah. So not what? Like you're saying something.
Yeah. So not everyone is comfortable with gray things. As an engineer, you are configured to work with black and white things. That is one problem that a lot of engineers face when they come into MBA, that you are not comfortable with gray things. So first of all, you should be comfortable with gray things as well when you don't have a solution.
I guess that's the most ironical statement I've ever heard, because like I checked IIM Calcutta's batch profile, it's like 80% engineers. So I don't know.
It is, yes.
So I just really don't know.
That's a problem that they're trying to solve.
Yeah. They just increasing the cutoff for everyone. So that's not how it functions. So another question is you told about how people get into product management as a bunch, right? Okay, somebody might get very motivated. I want to be a product manager at such a company. But as I was hearing a seminar by Saurabh Sen Gupta, the co-founder of initial employee of Zomato. Zomato. So I don't remember. But he just told placements in these schools are like Russian roulette. So anybody can get anything. So how comfortable do you need to be? What should be your expectation in the very beginning of your B school? Like consider both the scenarios: of being a fresher, or being a guy with some tech experience. So you've came in for you will be working with Microsoft probably. You'll be working for such a company, but you might end up working as a marketing intern for Nykaa. So nobody is very sure about what things might pan out, right? In what way? So how do you what should be an expectation of a guy who's just entering a B school? Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So when you enter into B school, and I'm talking about the Indian B schools, for the top maybe 30-40 B schools, the first few months are very hectic because you have to prepare for your summer internships. And how they work is, it's just 3 or 4 months into the college. You don't have any business knowledge apart from the 3-4 months you have studied. So most of it depends on whatever you have done past before joining the B school. It depends on your 10th, 12th scores, maybe your engineering, what you have done during engineering, and if you have work-ex. Again, significant work-ex. 6 months is not actually worthy.
Significant work.
Or any other extracurricular. Yeah, or any other extracurricular activities you have. So depending on that, you get shortlisted and all. Now this thing about Russian roulette, I'll say summers are very unpredictable. Not very. Let me say it again. Summers are unpredictable. You might or might not get what you want. They are very fast as well. They're like, for most many colleges, it's crunched into 3-4 days. So everything begins in the morning. There are many companies. If you miss one interview, you might go into you might get demotivated and confused in the cycle and all. So there are a lot of factors coming to it, and you might not get what you actually want during summers. There's a good chance.
Okay.
But I've seen plenty of people who started working on their own profile after that. After that, you get about 1.5 year till your finals. Finals is the final placement after 2 years, where you actually get the final job. So if you work in a proper structured manner and hard, I have like friends who have cracked their dream jobs or their dream sector. So it depends on how you study throughout the 1.5 year. So you can work towards finals. In that you can get what you want.
Okay.
Again, there I'm saying the chance of uncertainty decreases. It's not zero in the finals as well, but there are a lot of people who do that actually.
Okay, so another thing, I have the end of my streak of questions. So another question which I had was because you just told average work in the foreign B schools is probably 4 to 5 years, and people have a lot of idea what they exactly want from life or what they don't want from life before entering a B school. But currently, Indian B schools, if I'm a third year student, so I have a perspective over it. So you can tell me I'm very it's just a foolish thing you're thinking about. So a lot of people consider it as a race as soon as possible can I enter into a B school. So how much how much advantageous or maybe how destructive that mentality is for the corporate culture as a whole of India or probably nation. So that's the thing. It's considered to be a rat race now. Yeah, I know people are preparing for CAT from the second year, and maybe like the 3-year general degree students from BBA and BCom, they're preparing for their first year itself, enrolling in time and all. So how how the things function in that way? Yeah.
It's too open question. So for corporate, I really don't. I mean, it affects you personally. It does not affect. I mean, it might affect to a certain extent to the corporate culture, but on a large scale, it affects you personally. You go into a college where they're talking about how teams should be managed, how you have to work with colleagues, how you have to work with stakeholders, and you don't know anything. We don't do that in engineering. We don't work with bosses. We don't work with stakeholders. The team management that you do is not actually team working that you do in college. It's very different when you work in any professional setting, 1 year or 2 years. So then it's difficult sometimes for you to understand. It's difficult for you to grasp those concepts, or you can just ignore it as you have done. Maybe a lot of people do in their undergraduate.
Yeah.
Even that is a solution that people go to, and it affects during your placements sometimes. So some companies prefer that you have certain experience before coming. Maybe finance companies expect that you have experience of trading, or if you have trading, then they'll try to see that hey, this guy has trading experience, then it's good for them. And maybe this person has done a development job, maybe it's good for PM, so on and so forth. Some companies do that, but I think that's fair, right? There's a fresher who has no experience, there's a person who has experience of technology, and if they are both good enough, why would I choose the fresher? He or she does not have any experience.
Okay.
So in general, I would say it does not matter if you come into college 2 years or immediately. Maybe if you see long term that I joined at the age of 22 or I joined at the age of 24, in the long term it would really not matter. It would matter that you did it well, and if you have a plan. It matters if you have a plan. If you have a plan of getting into PM, but you have absolutely zero tech experience, it will be really difficult to crack the PM interviews.
Okay.
If you take 2 years of maybe some software development, if you get it, then it would be pretty easy. Even they would consider it. They would like that you have that, and you'll get a leverage over it.
Okay.
So if you don't have plan, a lot of these people who do this, I'm not trying to
generalize
it, but many people don't have plan, and that is quite scary. It's fine. I mean, a lot of people don't have it. Even I did not have it for a long time. Then it takes time. Talk to many people. That's what I would say. it's don't fear that you can just go on LinkedIn, you can type any person, you can ask them, what is PM, should I do it or not, in third year, in second year, in fourth year, whenever you find it, and then you understand what you want to do and not, and maybe you can then make a plan. So if you don't have, you're just trying to get in, it might get difficult for you personally. So get some experience. And if you want to know what out is there, just ping people. You can ping me if you want to know about PM, or you can ping anyone. It really does not that difficult.
Sure, like I got to know about sir when I actually pinged him and find out. So another thing you mentioned about you can ping people and different. So this is the thing we undergraduates don't really understand, because I myself never understood the importance of networking. How important or maybe not important is to actually network and go around asking people, because that's the like in engineering it's a completely different story. You have to write the JEE exam when you have took maths as your thing in class 11th, but undergraduate you are like enough mature, you have a choice, can ping people. So what is the importance of networking, you being an MBA student? So what is the importance of networking and how much it helps? Because I had a brother in IIM Calcutta like 10 years back. He said there's a famous quote in IIM Calcutta, your network is your net worth, something like that. So so I guess that's how it functions. So yeah, what's your take on networking as a whole? And that's like my final question.
Networking is valued a lot in BA college, and it has its benefits. It's actually a concept that is also taught in some. We had a subject called social network analysis, which is not actually Facebook and all. It's the social network, right? Network of people. So in that as well, we were taught that networking actually helpful. But let me clear what networking means. Networking does not mean that going to people for selfish reasons, taking out information and that's it. It's just talking to people to understand what they do or how they can help you, but also building relationships, not just for selfish reasons, but in general, you can build good relationships and that can help you as well. So networking does definitely helps. It's a research-based thing that networking helps. So when you connect to people, you get to know more than obviously you know. So you should have networks. And what was taught to us in that subject was don't just have what you have network right now, or what I have is like maybe students of my own college, and somewhere from my undergraduate. That will help to a limit. What will actually help is network from diverse people. So maybe some of my medical friends or lawyer friends. In the long run, that helps. I'll tell you how. I won't go into research or something, but it's proven that when you want to switch into a different companies, your own friends are in the same circle. So a lot of my friends are into investment banking companies in development. Now it won't help me. What if I want to switch? Everyone is into banking. What should I do? Nobody's into startups. Now I got a better circle in MBA. Now there are people into startups. So when your network actually becomes diverse, then it helps you into actually job searches or even gaining knowledge. So yes, network helps. How you build is a totally different game. You can just Google it, or I'll say just talk to more people. Don't be afraid. A very small version is talk to more people. Don't be afraid of just going and pinging it. What's the worst that could happen? They would say no, or they would ignore it. That's not really a big deal. Don't take it on your ego. Just go and talk to people.
Sure, sir. Also, this is the ending notes. You mentioned networking and taking the right choices. There's a lot of ruckus around this fact. Because I've heard a lot of people say that in podcasts and a lot of. Very sorry, like my mother dropped some utensils. So yeah. So I also have one question, that there's a lot of ruckus around that thing. I've seen people and elite personalities saying on podcasts that you can learn a lot by us in a startup, working in a startup for like say 2 to 3 years than in an MBA. An MBA is like not that important right now. So what is your take on that? Since you've invested, it takes a lot of your time and money and a lot of investments to go for this course. So how much do you think, like what's your take after you've done an MBA? So what's your take on this course? Like how much it helps? Like engineering, it's a black and white thing again. Learn to work with machines. You cannot learn it by any other chance. It's a chance you can learn, but it's a right way to go for it. But what's your take on MBA? Like what's your take on this whole conundrum?
So I've been to a few sessions where I've spoken with alums and all, and I have gotten a recurring answer, and even I subscribe to that I did not learn a lot of concepts. I learned a few concepts, but what actually I learned was actually change into personality. I personally gain some self-confidence, self-realization, and actually what I said, that you have to make a plan. That's what I got from MBA. You understand what you want and what you don't want, and you make a plan. So that was my like taking my output from MBA. It might not be for others. As for concepts or something, you can definitely learn it from startups. But while startups, you can also learn it from big MNCs as well. That's not the point. You can learn while working. You can learn while studying as well. The only difference that it makes is actually about, I won't mince word, it actually makes a difference in getting a job. Some of the top colleges actually help you get a top job, which will be quite difficult. It will take time if you go from outside. But again, I don't mean that. So what jobs also, right? You have to see. So maybe you will learn development better in a company than actually going into MTech, because that's a very specialized thing. So see what type of jobs you are getting after, and if you want those, then you go according to go into that masters.
Okay.
But yes, people learn from both ways.
Learning from life, it's like an abstract theory, because I had a session with Rakesh Goswami sir in Bangalore. So he just told about the same thing. You can learn with life, but MBA is like it structures everything in like a couple of years, and serves it to you. So you can use that later in life. You can learn game theory at any point of life, but you can end up using it maybe after your MBA, whatever it is. So sure, sir. So thanks a lot for like sitting with us, and that's pretty much the end of it. So what was your experience in this conversation? How naive do you think I am now?
I really don't think it's you're naive or something, and it was a pretty good podcast. Thank you for having me, and I think it's a good thing you're doing. So thank you for having me, and this was really a great interview. I would actually just suggest to whoever listens to this that if you want, you can talk to me or anyone you want to, and then just understand what you want. And I'll just say that take decisions based on reason, and don't go into a rat race. Yes, that's it.
Sure, sir. Thanks a lot. And maybe a lot of people might end up watching this, because I currently don't have a lot of reach. So if you can say this like, share, subscribe drill, which every YouTube video from the planet eventually has.
Yeah. Right. So and it was great talking with you, Kanishk, and guys, if you like, and Kanish has been talking to a lot of people from the industry, from the colleges, and so if you like his videos, please like, share, subscribe. I think it will help him in getting more videos, and he'll get content, and he'll get interesting podcast to listen.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Thank you for lending your time to us. Brother,